Kitchen,
where we are cooking
with family.
Today is very exciting because we are going to be making homemade pasta. Yeah. Is that your favorite dish?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
One of your favorite dishes? Okay. So this is going to occur in multiple stages because we have to make our dough, let it rest. I'm going to show you two different ways to make the pasta dough. One with the food processor and one without, just in case you don't have one at home. And then we'll take a break, we'll come back, we'll roll out the pasta, and then finally we're going to cook it.
Yeah.
Okay. To start out making pasta dough, very, very simple. All it is eggs and flour. Now, you can add salt to the dough. I prefer not to do that. Reason why is because when you add salt into the dough, if you want to roll out the pasta, depending upon how thin you want it, it could actually cause the pasta to tear. You're much better off seasoning your pasta by putting a fairly good amount of salt in the boiling water when you're cooking it, and we'll explain how to do that. All right, so like we did before, when we crack eggs with kids, we always crack them into a separate bowl. Now this time, we're actually going to separate our eggs.
I know how to do that.
Okay, so yes, Anna has done that before.
In a culinary arts school camp.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we actually need 2 whole eggs and 3 egg yolks, okay? So let's separate the 3 egg yolks first. All right, so you're gonna have your yolks, so you need another bowl for the egg whites.
Do we need the whites for anything?
Well, 2 of the eggs, we'll just put 2 eggs in whole. Okay, now that one did not break so well. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Why don't we use this one? Crack another one. No, we'll use this one. We'll put the whole one in there. Just put the whole egg in there.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, good. No shells in the food processor, right?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so now let's do another one. These little glass bowls, they're really cheap and they're awesome. Not only for cooking and prepping things, but since kids like things separated on their plate anyway, they use these for like putting sauces and ketchup and stuff like that in there. So that's great, right? Crack it a little harder. There you go. Okay, now separate it out. Ooh, you did not. All right, Anna. Okay, put that one in there.
It's
Right.
hard.
Right. Do you want me to do one?
Yeah.
Right. There's multiple different ways you can do it. If you can crack the eggshell in half, so I'll show you if I crack the egg, if I can crack it in half and tear it in half, I can easily just let the yolk sit in the egg, pour the yolk on to the other side, and just keep doing this back and forth. Just be careful that the yolk does not break, and all the whites will separate out, and then the yolk you just put in there. Now, that does take some practice. Other ways you can do it, you can crack the egg over your hand and hold the yolk and let all the whites drip through. It's a little bit messy, but like we learned last time, we do use our hands to cook, right? Okay. Okay. That looks much better, Anna. See how that cracked? Okay, perfect. All right, so separate that out. All right. You got it all in one. Awesome. Okay, and we need 1 more egg yolk. Okay. Now, with the food processor, it's going to make it a lot easier to make the dough. There's a lot less kneading with the food processor. We're going to use our dough hook. This is the one with the plastic blade. Okay, you getting that? Okay. Perfect, Anna. Awesome. You did great. All right, so once you go wash your hands, okay. The egg whites we don't need, but you can save these, put them in a container in the fridge, make a nice egg white omelet. All right, so maybe mommy wants to take care of that. All right, so now for the fun part. We're gonna take our food processor. We'll bring this over into the center. We're gonna put our dough blade in, and then let's put the lid on. Well, it goes sideways first, okay, then turn it. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly add,
Sugar.
no, not sugar, flour.
Flour.
We're gonna slowly add a cup plus a little more. What we're trying to get the food processor to do is to knead and spin that flour into a nice ball. So we're gonna turn this on. All right, well, let's fill this up first. Go ahead, fill it up with a cup.
Can I
Oops.
have a knife, please?
No, it doesn't have to be perfect. So my daughter, when she's baking, she likes to top it off with a butter knife to get exactly, 1 cup of flour. That's what you should do. But with this, because we're gonna be putting a little extra in anyway, it's perfectly fine. So we're gonna, so let me turn it on. What she's gonna do is she's gonna slowly, she's actually just gonna cup her hand over that so it doesn't spill all over the place, pour the flour in, and then we'll slowly add a little bit more flour until it spins into a ball. All right, so go ahead, Anna. Go ahead, just drop it all in. Just drop it all in. Okay, perfect. All right, now let's get a little bit more flour. You can hear it starting to do that. Let's put a little bit more in. Perfect. Now you want it to let it continue to spin and pick up all the extra bits around the food processor. And if you do that, you will notice that it makes a wonderful ball of pasta, okay? Pasta dough. Very, very easy. If you did this manually, and we're gonna make two balls, we'll make another one without it. If you do it manually, that saves you 7 minutes of kneading. Okay? So,
Did you
it's
put
still...
like a lot of flour in your instance?
Well, yes, so we do still need to knead this. What we're going to do is we are going to take our spatula and we're going to scrape out the rest of the bottom of the dough, put flour on our countertop, make sure the countertop is clean first, and then we're going to get all this dough out, and then we're going to knead it. Now you're going to have to knead it a little bit, but not nearly as much as if you were going to make this by hand. So, probably 2-3 minutes tops. So we got the flour, we got flour on our hands, right? Okay, and let me move this so everybody can see. So we have our flour, let's move this out of the way as well. Okay, now, so most it into a ball, and what we want to do, so we got to knead it on the countertop, right? Okay, so let me show you first, and then you can do it. Why? No, but we're showing people, right? Okay, so you're going to use the palm of your hand and just push down into the dough, turn it over, and push again. Now when you first start to push, it's going to feel very, very soft. As you keep turning this and pushing, the dough is going to start to become more elastic. And what you want to do is just keep doing this and just keep turning it and rolling it. If it starts to stick to your hand, just put a little bit more flour on. And, all right, so okay, you had to do it. And just push and then turn. Right, push, fold, and turn. And keep doing that until the ball, until it forms a nice smooth ball. Now, you'll know when you did it enough when the dough consistently pushes back at you, right? So when you push down, it pops right back up. That's the consistency you want. You don't want to over knead it, but you do want it to give you that, that spring back when it comes back into the dough. Okay, so you can see how very quickly the dough does that. Maybe just a few more times, maybe I'll even do a few more. If you were to do this by hand, which I'll show you how to do it next, you just got to knead it longer, but you're looking for the same exact consistency. Okay, all right, let me lead a little. Okay, so, and it is a lot easier if you use the palm of your hand and you're just going to push into the countertop. Okay, so keep kneading and pushing. Okay, all right, this actually looks and feels very good. All right, so great job, Anna. All right, so now we need some plastic wrap. What you're going to do now is you have to let the dough rest, and I typically let the dough rest for about a half hour. Okay. What we're going to do is once it gets elastic and it looks nice and smooth, we're just going to roll it into a ball. You don't need more than that. Pull more. Okay, that's good. Okay, so tear it off. Perfect. Okay, now cover it. Okay, and then wrap it And then you want to,
You twist it.
yeah, twist it, exactly. Okay, get it all together. Okay. You just want to twist it into a ball so that it's all covered. You want to keep the air out of it. Okay, and then you don't have to tie it. Just take the twisted part and put it right down on the counter and let that rest for about a half hour. Once that rests, you'll notice when we take it out later, it's going to feel exactly like it did when before we started kneading it. But it's necessary for it to rest for the dough to set properly. Okay, so now we're going to show you how to do this if you don't have a food processor. Now you haven't seen this before. Okay, the process is actually the same, except we are going to use our countertop to make the pasta dough. So we need more eggs. I think Mommy just went to get more eggs. We're going to have to crack those eggs.
And we put them on the counter?
Yes, we're going to put them on the counter. Okay.
Mommy don't seem very happy about that.
Well, we already put the thing on the counter. Okay, so where's our measuring cup for the, we just want, okay. So what we want to do is we want to have a cup of flour, and we're just going to pour it on the countertop and probably add at least another half a cup, because what we need to do is we need to make a well in the middle of the flour. So you're just going to spread it out, and that's where the eggs are going to go, all right? Now, I'm actually going to add a little bit more. It's okay if you add more. You need flour on the edge anyway, but you need that to hold the eggs. Remember, we got 2 whole eggs and 2 whole eggs, and then we have 3 egg yolks. So I'm going to move the camera over so you can actually see what this looks like. All right, so this is what our well looks like. Notice how I just pushed the side. I'm making a hole for the flour. Now it's okay if I put more flour. If I want to make the wall thicker, that's perfectly fine. If there's any excess flour, it's just not going to mix in, so that's perfectly fine. Okay, so now we got to crack our eggs. We got to do the same thing. We got to separate 3 yolks and then crack 2 whole ones. So I'm going to start with cracking the 2 holes. So we'll put those in. We'll put 1 egg. Okay. Wait, you want to crack it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just in the well. Okay. All right. Now, what is helpful here is if you actually start mixing into the flour instead of trying to put it all in there at once, because then it'll spill across. Now, this is where your handy dandy fork is going to come in. What you're going to do is just slightly beat the egg. Okay, well, now why don't you start separating the egg yolks? Get 2 bowls. Oh, no, we have the bowls right here. So Anna, right here. So just use those 2 and start separating those egg yolks while we do that. Okay, mix it together. And what you're going to do is just start folding in the dough. The flour. I can't think of what it's called, right? Just start mixing it in, folding it in, and once you get that, that's okay. Once you put that in the sink, once you get that folded in, now if it makes a hole, just move the flour over. Just keep mixing it in until the flour comes together. Now, you keep doing that until it mixes in. Just keep mixing more flour in. And then we'll add in the extra egg yolks. Okay. Now, I didn't mention this before.
Do you want me to put these together?
Yeah, you can put the egg yolks together. Okay. The reason why you want the extra egg yolks in your pasta is you want the extra fat content in there. That will make for a richer, more tasty pasta. It also what gives it that classic yellowish color. That's where that comes from. Okay, so I just keep turning this in and turning this in. Okay, you'll notice the dough is starting to come together, and you can see how much easier this is with a food processor. But this still works. It just takes a little more time, a little bit more patience. Okay, so we're gonna put this in. Now, it's kind of like pasty right now. I'm gonna make another well, and we're gonna put our egg yolks in there. Now, if you want, you can do one at a time. The egg yolks aren't nearly as runny because this is where, most of your fat is. So you can just put all those 3 in and just keep folding it in until the dough comes together. Okay. Liz, can you touch that?
Where?
Right there. Okay. All right. All right, so you can see how it starts to look like the dough that was in the food processor. We're going to turn this in, keep turning it in, keep mixing it together, and eventually what's going to happen is it's going to get enough where you can start working with this with your hands. It's almost there. You can still see some runny eggs. So I'm still just going to keep turning it with my fork until I have enough of the dough come together with the eggs and the flour. You can see it's starting to come together. So just keep folding it and turning it. You want to lift the flour into the dough and get all the eggs and that incorporated in. Okay. Now it's probably at a consistency where I can use my hands. So I'm going to take the extra dough off the hands and I'm just going to start pushing it together. And you can see how it's starting to form a pasta dough. You want to feel how it go there? Okay. Now, it still feels a little sticky, right? So what we could do is we could just add a little bit more flour, just sprinkle it right on top, and keep kneading the dough. Same thing where you're pushing it over, and just like you were doing before. Now, this is going to take longer for it to come together. But eventually, if you keep doing this, and again, see my hands are starting to get sticky. Okay. Might need a little bit more flour just to stop it from sticking on our hands. And we're just gonna keep rolling it and kneading it and pushing it. And at some point, it'll start to turn just like it does with the food processor. Hi, we're back, and our pasta has rested. Well, at least our first ball of pasta has rested for at least 30 minutes.
And I decided to join.
Yes, Andrew loves making pasta. At least he loves this part of making pasta. He doesn't like the dough part. So he's gonna help us roll out the sheets and then cut the pasta. Today we're gonna make tagliatelle. So we're just gonna roll out the pasta and then we'll cut it into slices using a hand pasta cutter. Now this, if you can see, it actually has little squigglies on it. That's what gives the pasta like a nice ripply edge. So we'll do that. Now, like I said, we want this to rest 30 minutes. It can rest longer, but it has to rest at least 30 minutes. You don't want to rest it too much longer than that. 45 minutes is okay. We're going to take it out of the thing. So Anna should take it out of there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flatten it out and prepare it to go through the roller. Now I have my KitchenAid mixing set. This set is almost 15 years old. So I've had this for a really long time along with the mixer. This has never failed me. This is a great tool. You can buy the separate pasta roller. And you could start out by hand, but doing it by hand is annoying. It's just like doing it without the food processor. You can also buy a motor and attach to it. By the time you spend all that money, you're better off investing in the KitchenAid mixer and then the roller, because you'll spend maybe just a little bit more for this, but you get so much more use out of the mixer than just the pasta attachment. Okay. So we're going to take this out and we're going to start off with the rolling tool. Okay. Now the rolling tool has a dial on it. And it'll be hard for you to see, but it has a different number. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this to the lowest number, 1. That's how we're gonna first roll our initial dough out. So we're gonna put this in our mixer. And so we'll take the plate off, put this through. Now what Anna started to do, so we can tell them what you were doing. Why don't you tell them what you were doing?
What?
With the dough.
Oh,
Now, you forgot to put flour on the countertop.
Well, yeah, I was going to put flour on it.
Okay, so let's sprinkle some flour on the countertop so that this way, yeah, if you want, you can put some flour on your hand. Good. Okay, thanks, Andy. All right. What she's doing with the dough is she is just flattening it out and stretching it just a little bit so it's somewhat in a rectangular shape. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't want to make it too wide because it's got to fit through the roller, but what you're trying to do is thin it out and see how she got it so it's almost the exact size of the roller. That is perfect, Anna. Okay, so we're going to turn on our mixer on the lowest setting, and then we're going to feed the dough in. Okay, so let it, now once you feed it through, well, you can do it, we got to do this 3 times. So we're going to feed it through. Okay, so you start pulling it back. Okay. And you'll see that as the dough feeds through, you'll get a nice sheet of dough. Okay, all right, you want to do the next one? Okay, now, this will, as you start to stretch it out, this is going to get a little sticky. So what I like to do is just sprinkle a little bit more flour on it. So Andy, you want to put some more flour on? And just spread it out with your hands, okay? Now, since I had flour on my countertop, there's plenty of flour on the back, so just spread that out. And again, you just want a little bit to coat it. It'll help it stop sticking when it goes to the roller. Okay, so now let Andy do this one. So let Andy lift this up. So switch places with him. Okay. All right, so Andy, so I'm gonna hold this, and you're gonna feed it through. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that as you roll this through, so we're going to roll this through 3 times, and then we're going to start increasing the number on the roller. That's going to cause the pasta to stretch out. Now, I have a countertop that is about 6 feet in length, and with this recipe, it fits perfectly. If you have a smaller countertop, simply take that dough knife, cut the dough in half, and then roll it out twice, and then that way, you know, it won't be as long. Okay, so one more time through should do it. And all we're trying to do here is just flatten out the dough and get it as even as possible. Okay. All right. So you can see even now just rolling it through, it does become a little bit thinner. So it got longer, right, Anna?
Yeah, it's something more.
Okay, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to turn this to make it a little bit easier for us to roll, because you saw how it went through. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the dial and we're going to set it to number 2, and now we're going to push it through again. Okay, so Anna, you do number 2, so kind of feed it through. And this is where it's fun for kids to help, because everybody can help with this, because as it gets longer, we need more hands. Okay. Now you just want to hold and support it. You don't want to stretch it out, but you just want to hold it enough so that it's holding in there. Now you can let it fold to the ground if you're doing this by yourself. So that was number 2. But if you have extra helping hands, it makes it just easier. Okay, so now I did it number 3. So you see, that actually made the dough longer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to roll it for number 3. And with this set, I actually prefer most of my pasta to roll out to number 4. I've tried other numbers. I've tried to roll it out thinner. I think it becomes too difficult to work with. Any number or lower than 4, like if you rolled it out at 3 and left it at 3, the pasta's too thick. So I find number 4 is a perfect number. Okay, so that was number 3. We're going to do this one more time. Number 4, and let's feed it through again. Okay, up, keep it straight. All right, now grab it from the bottom and start. Okay, we have an assembly line going here. All right, that looks beautiful. Okay, so once this rolls through, we will be, what's going on, guys?
It has to fold because I don't have enough.
All right, well, that's okay. That's another reason why you want to flour it in between steps. And if you find at any point that the dough gets sticky, just lay it out and flour it. All right, so I'm going to take this off and move this over to the side, and we're just going to lay it out on the countertop. Okay. All right, now don't let it fold, just let it, okay. So you can see that's approximately, this is 6 feet. So again, if you have a smaller one, just simply do that and simply just cut the dough ball in half before you start rolling, before you flatten it out and roll it through. Okay, so now we're going to start cutting. Now, what we're going to start off with, we're going to make tagliatelle, which are like thick, wide bands of pasta. Because this is fresh pasta, you want to cut it approximately to the length that you're going to eat it at. It is going to grow a little bit, but not as much as dried pasta because this is already hydrated. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut off, I don't know, maybe about 12 to 16 inches. It's completely up to you. I would just recommend keeping them approximately the same. So I'm going to take my pasta and I'm going to cut it. And we're just going to keep on cutting it. All right, you guys want to cut some?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go around there. Okay. And you can see it made a nice sheet, and it's hard to see the perforated edges, but that's what we have. So we have our different sheets of pasta. Okay, so cut some more.
Right here?
Yeah. All right. Now make sure you press down. See, that didn't separate.
That's what I tried to
That's okay. So just do it again on the same line, but make sure you press down as you cut. Okay. That should. All right, just one cut, Andy. Okay. All right. Doesn't have to be perfect. No one will notice. Okay. All right. That's a pretty long piece of pasta, but we'll go with it. All right. So, okay. So now we have our sheets. They are not the same length, but that's okay. We will just work with it. Okay, you cut the end off. Why don't you cut an end off over here? Well, don't waste all that. You just cut that part off. Okay. Now, if we were going to feed this through the cutter and use like a spaghetti cutter, we would want to make sure that all of the strips are approximately the same size and they're all square. You don't want the rounded, well, actually no, the rounded edges are fine with that. It's when you're making the ravioli and stuff like that. But for regular pasta, it's fine. We're not going to use a cutter. We're going to use the tool to do the cutter. So you're going to start off by, we want to give every piece of pasta a nice little squiggly edge. So what you're going to do, no, we're going to go long ways. So first cut off the very edge and try not to waste too much. So just here, let me do the first one. So you're going to cut off the very edge, and maybe we should bring the camera over so people can see. Okay? All right. Then we'll start cutting our next one.
Do you want me to put more flour in it?
Okay, just a little bit, not too much. You got to sprinkle it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so how about, Andy, you cut this one. So cut the two edges off.
Where?
Cut the square edge off so you have a nice edge. And don't make it too wide, you just want to cut the edge off. Okay, and now cut the other edge off. Okay, good. All right, so now cut the rest of the pieces.
Andy doesn't cut all of it.
All right. Okay. Okay. Now, there are a couple tricks to this pasta. If you have a drying rack, you can actually take the pasta and you can hang it and let it dry on a drying rack. The other option is, you do want it to somewhat dry out, but if you leave it flat, if you leave it there, it's possible that it might stick. So what I like to do is sprinkle a little, well, let Andy do this one, and then you can do the next one. Look, we got 3 more. Okay, not too fast, Andy. Okay, because you want to, that one wasn't straight. That's okay. So what you can do is you can sprinkle it with a little semolina flour. Now the reason why you want to use semolina flour as the regular flour is it has it's more grainy. It's a larger grain. The intent there is not to have it actually, if you put regular flour on top of it, the flour will absorb the flour, the pasta will absorb the flour, become sticky again. If you put semolina on top, I'll show you, the semolina will just stop the pasta from sticking to each other, but when it goes into the pan, it'll just sink to the bottom. Okay. So I have semolina flour. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna sprinkle a little bit on top, okay? And now I can take this pasta and I can even put it in on a ball, and that's perfectly fine. As long as I have the semolina on it, I'll be able to easily cook that later. Okay. So, but you gotta make sure you put the semolina on it. If you or you put regular flour on it, that will all come into a giant mess when you boil it. Okay, so we're back. We have cleaned up, we finished cutting up all the pasta. We had dusted it with semolina, right? And just kind of rolled it up into little balls. Well, not balls, but little pockets of pasta.
Piles.
Piles, that's the great word, Anna. Okay, I put it on some foil just so that it can rest, and then I cleaned up the countertops. There was flour in different places, including on the floor. That will happen when you're doing this with kids, but take out the vacuum and clean it up, it's fine. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get our water ready. Now, I already have a pot boiling on the stove. Now it's hard to see that there's a rolling boil, but if you look at this pot, you really want, and it was on the stove, you really want this water vigorously boiling. And it's hard to see because I took it off the stove. But when this is on the stove, you really want to see lots of bubbles. You want that water extremely hot because you want, when you put that pasta in, it's going to cool the temperature down. And you really want, in order to cook the pasta properly, it'll do that. Drop it in. Now the other thing is, you really want to put salt inside your water. Now, it's going to look like I'm putting a lot of salt in the water, and that's because I am. This is your only chance to put any kind of seasoning into that pasta. Remember, we haven't put any salt in there yet. So I'm going to put probably 2 or 3 tablespoons, and I'm going to do this by hand, but I'm just going to dump this into the water. This is about 5-6 quarts of water, so I'm going to need a lot. And I'm going to start there, put that water in, put that salt in, and then I want to stir it around, get it mixed into the boiling water, and then I want to taste it. If I can't taste salt, there is not enough salt in that water. You want to taste it? Okay, great. So, now, here's a trick. If you are cooking dry pasta, you just want to taste a little bit of salt because it's going to sit in that pasta water longer when it's boiling. Dry pasta is usually anywhere from 6 to 12 minutes. Fresh pasta is going to cook in 2 to 3 minutes tops to get it to al dente. And that is the word. Oh, but I said it, and I wanted you to guess it. Okay.
Al dente.
Al dente. Oh, I messed it up. Oh well. So al dente is basically firm to the bite. What you want to do is you want to take your pasta and you want to cook it to the point where it's just barely cooked, right? Because you actually don't want to finish cooking it in your boiling water. You want to finish cooking it in the sauce you're going to serve it with, okay? And that'll allow the pasta to absorb the flavors of the sauce. Okay, so how does that taste? And it's going to be hot, so be careful.
Yeah, this spoon is hot.
Well, yeah, but you got to taste it.
Yeah, I taste that.
Do you taste salt?
Yeah, I taste a lot of salt.
Oh yeah, no more. That's perfect. Okay. Now again, if you're not sure, start off with a tablespoon and just keep tasting it. You are going to want it a little bit more salty than, because this, like I said, this pasta is going to cook very quickly. So we're going to take our pasta and we're just going to drop it in. So I'm going to take each one of the piles. Thank you, Anna. Okay, and we're just going to drop that in to the pasta. And the pasta is initially going to sink to the bottom of the pot, but within 2 to 3 minutes, it's going to float to the top. And then once the pasta is al dente, and you can taste it, that's when we're going to remove it. Okay. Now, we had made 2 balls of pasta dough, right? That will serve anywhere from 6 to 8 people, depending on how much you eat. We typically would make 1 ball if we're going to serve, that's just enough for 4 if there's no leftovers. So if you want leftovers, make 2. Absolutely fine for just 2 people. Okay, so why don't we put that over there by the sink? Okay. Now that semolina flour that we put on that pasta has pretty much now all sunk to the bottom of the pot, which is exactly what we wanted. And this is hard to see, but the pasta has actually, floated to the top. So we're just going to cook this for maybe another minute or so, and then we'll taste it. And if it's al dente, then we're ready to go. Okay. All right, so let's taste our pasta. Okay. Okay. I would say that it tastes a little bit raw. It still needs to cook a little bit.
Can I eat the rest of this?
You can eat it, sure. Keep that pasta boiling on high. Keep the rolling boil. The salt will cause the water to foam a little bit, so if you need to turn it down to stop it from overflowing, certainly do that. But this, give it another minute and we'll
Taste it again.
taste it again. Okay.
It's so good.
So, now, while we're waiting, let's get out our strainer. Okay. Now, two ways you can do this. You can be very careful and pour the pasta into, oops. That's, okay. That's what happened. Just the salt pulled over. Well, that happens. Nothing to worry. We'll taste that again. You can pour it into the strainer very carefully. Fresh pasta is a little more fragile than regular pasta. If you want, if you have a strainer spoon, you can lift it out that way, and that's a way that you can get the pasta out as well. Either way, you're going to put it into the strainer so it can drain.
Can I get one?
You want to get one, another one? Okay. Now again, we're looking for al dente. What do you think? Oops. Yeah, go ahead, just pick it up with your hands.
Yeah. Alright, yummy.
Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
I still think it needs a little bit more.
Can I turn it?
All right, let's taste it again. It's been another minute. All right, let me shut it off. Let's pull a piece of pasta out. All right, let's see. Is it done?
Can't put
Here,
this.
well, you're holding it away from you. Here, hold it towards you.
Okay.
Here, yeah, try it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that done?
I think so.
Let's see. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, firm to the bite, al dente, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So, let's strain our pasta. And I'm obviously not gonna pour it here. I'm gonna do this in the sink. That would not be good.
Nope. And Mommy would not like that.
Ooh, and I forgot.
What?
Before we dump all of this out, we actually wanna save some of this pasta water.
Really?
Okay. The reason why we want to do that is because, remember, the pasta is not all the way through cooking. It's al dente, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to save about a half a cup or so. We don't want much, but that starchy water, we're going to pour that in with our pasta, and I'll show you how we're going to finish the pasta in the sauce. So now I can finish. Good thing I remembered. And if you forget, it's okay. You don't need the water, but it does help you finish cooking
Well, I wanna eat
the
that.
pasta. You want to eat that
Yeah.
piece? Well, it got stuck. I'm going to put that in there. Okay, so now our pasta is strained. We are now going to finish it. Now, I prefer pasta to be finished in the sauce. My daughter and my son, nope,
No.
they want it
No,
separate.
no,
So
no.
save some for them, save some for us.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we are going to take our sauce our pasta pot, and I actually have some homemade marinara sauce that I made, and we're going to take the pasta water, we're going to put that in here, we're going to add some of the pasta, and I'll do this with, oh, we have no tongue? Oh, we have okay, so we're going to take some of this pasta, and I'll probably put half of this in here and save the other half for the kids. All right. Okay, that's a little more than half. Looks good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're going to take some of our sauce and we're going to put it in the pasta and mix it in. So 2 or 3 ladles, just so all the pasta is actually coated, right? So I want to coat all the pasta with the sauce. That extra water that is in there, that is all going to evaporate off because we're going to put this back on the stove on high.
Okay.
Okay. Now if you want, you can put a little bit extra sauce in there. That's perfectly fine. And what we want to do is just boil that extra water off and finish cooking the pasta in the sauce. And when you do that, the pasta will absorb the flavors of the sauce. It'll be much richer and much more flavorful. It'll take on whatever flavor you're mixing in. So we're doing marinara, if you're doing Alfredo, if you're doing, whatever you want, the pasta will take on that flavor. Okay, so because I have this on high, this is starting to really bubble, right? And that's what I want. I just want to finish cooking it and basically get that extra water to evaporate. You really don't want to cook this more than 1 or 2 minutes. You don't want to overcook the pasta, but the water helps the pasta finish cooking with the sauce. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes. Maybe just a little more than a minute, really not a couple minutes. Most of the water is gone and the pasta is really bubbling, so now we're going to plate this pasta. Okay, so we have our pasta, we have our sauce, and let's get a nice plate. Now if you want to make the pasta look really nice, take a pair of tongs. What you're going to do is you're going to plate it and move it onto the center of the plate and then put it down and twist it. So I'm going to put this here, put this down and twist, okay? And then maybe we'll do that again, do a little bit more. Take the plate, put it down and twist. And that'll allow the pasta to pile up on the plate. Now we can put a little bit more sauce on that pasta.
If you want to.
If you want to, yes. But you like it plain all the way anyway, right? So now we'll take some of the marinara, take some of those chunky tomatoes that are in there. Let's get that on top as well. Okay. And there you have it. Maybe a little garnish, some fresh basil. And here you go, homemade pasta. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next week. We will have our next episode. Not sure what we're cooking yet, but we're going to figure it out.
Yep.
Take care. Bye-bye.